Hello and welcome to the strangest gig I've ever played. True tales from the studio and the stage. I am your host, Chris J. Norwood. On the podcast with us today is Jason Hayes. Jason is Senior Vice President of Brand Experience for the Great State Fair of Texas, which means he's in charge of all things music for the fair. We get into the great musical history, as well as the current acts that they've got booked for the year. It's a pretty fun conversation, and I think you will enjoy it, so stay tuned. Yes, welcome back to The Strangest Gig. Again, I'm your host, Chris J. Norwood. I want to go ahead and jump in pretty quickly, but before we do that, Chris J. Norwood and the Knockdown Dragout, we've got a pretty big show coming up that I want to let you know about. December 6th, we will be at the Longhorn Ballroom, the historic famous Longhorn Ballroom, opening for the great Mark Broussard. We are super excited to be able to play this venue, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Get your tickets now and come see us. As I said, Jason Hayes is our guest today. He is Senior Vice President of Brand Experience for the Great State Fair of Texas. I really enjoy getting to have these people on the podcast who come from a different side of the music industry as us musicians. I think it's interesting to hear their takes on and their process on why and who they hire. And I think you'll find it fascinating as well. And lastly, before we get started, I want to shout out real quick Maureen Womack from Rabbit Hat Promotions. Maureen was a big help in setting this interview up, and she is definitely an unsung hero of the local music scene. So Maureen, I really appreciate it. And now, without further ado, let's dive in. Here is Jason Hayes. All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming. Jason Hayes, I'm really glad you're here. This will be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get to talk to you. So tell me about your current gig, what you're doing currently.
Cool. So I am the Senior Vice President of Brand Experience for the State Fair of Texas. And what that covers is all of the entertainment, attractions outside of Midway and livestock. I have no experience with any of those things. And
no 4-H club in your past? Or
no 4-H club. I grew up in Allen. So,
yeah, okay, so no.
I was on the verge of rural Texas, but
not quite there.
Not close enough. But then also our in-ground environment, so like the look and feel, like right before you arrive to getting on a tram, to going through the gate, deciding what your ticket looks like, things like that. So every ounce of the visual that you see that the fair directs.
That's fun.
And then ultimately like our special projects.
Yeah.
So, for example, we're building a new administration building, and that's something that would be under my direction.
How long have you been with the fair?
This is my 17th fair.
Wow.
Yeah. It's incredible how time flies. This is my 12th full time.
Yeah.
I like to say I hold the record for longest internship ever at the State Fair of Texas.
You just interned and never left.
Pretty much. I started in 2008 as an intern in PR.
Okay. Which
at that time, that team was 2 full-time employees and maybe 2 interns. And now it's like one of our biggest departments.
Yeah.
I think they have a total of 20 seasonal employees.
Wow.
And 4 or 5 full-time employees. So it was a different beast back then, even though 2008 doesn't sound like it was a long time ago, or not too far distant, but we were still printing off press releases, and the media would come pick them up. And that was my first gig at the fair, was literally printing off press releases, which seems so ancient these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a fun 17 years.
Is that your background, PR? Did you go to college for that?
So I went to Texas Tech for public relations and electronic media communications, so radio, TV, film.
Yeah.
And when I graduated in 2008, the economy was incrable. There were jobs everywhere.
Yeah. I graduated in 2006, so yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so we walked into a ripe time for the workforce.
Everybody talks about the gig economy now.
Yeah.
I think we invented it back
in
2008. So when I went to Texas Tech, Tech was decent in football at that time. under Mike Leach. And I was a runner and production assistant for a company called Sport Vision. Mm-hmm. So, the yellow line in football.
Yeah.
So anytime they would come out with television production, I was working with them. And when I graduated, they had a spot for me in horse racing.
Wow.
So putting down literally the 300-yard, 200-yard, 100-yard finish line in horse racing. So in 2008, right out of college, I started with that. And my first gig was the Belmont Stakes up in New York.
Fun, yeah.
And a horse named Big Brown was going for the Triple Crown. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, he lost in the final turn. But after I got back from Dallas, it's like, you've got like 4 of these gigs and, $120,000 worth of student loans. You better find something else. And I got a phone call from somebody that I went to church with, Sue Gidding. She's the former SVP of PR. And she said, hey, I need an intern this summer. Would you like to do it? And the rest is history.
That's great.
Yeah. And then in 2012, came on full time with our current president, Mitchell Gleber.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the music that the State Fair offers. So one of my first gigs out of college was with a stage show called Vocal Trash, which I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. Which has played at the State Fair a bunch of times.
Right.
Never when I was in the group.
Okay.
But so what we played a ton of state fairs and county fairs all over the country. So I've been to more fairgrounds in the 2 years I was with the band than most people have in their whole life, present company excluded. But one of the things I love about the State Fair of Texas currently is just the way y'all book acts. So at other fairgrounds, there would be local acts, but there's not a lot of like original local acts at those fairgrounds. It's mostly variety acts and that sort of thing. Was that a conscious decision for y'all to bring in original local regional music?
Absolutely. So if you look at like the fair industry as a whole, most of that industry is small. And a lot of it's rural. Even some of the larger partners, Minnesota and Iowa and Washington, they're all in more urbanized areas. But
they're still very agrarian, because I've played those state fairs. They're very agrarian.
And they also have their entertainment model and revenue driving model is like a grandstand. So a paid attraction, that's a big driver for Minnesota. San Diego has, or Del Mar has a similar model. But at our fair, our philosophy is that, when you pay your ticket, you're getting all of our entertainment and attractions for free.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal.
And you're more than welcome to, spend money on the Midway and,
sure,
on corny dogs and other wonderful items. But we want that experience that, there's a value prop here that is really, really valuable. And when I first took over entertainment, which it's been about 4 or 5 years, it's actually when I engaged State Fair Records here in town. I had noticed that, we're backdoor neighbors to Deep Ellum, the core of live music in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And, why not lean on your neighbors, not only to enhance our offering to the guest, to entice our guests to come more than once so they can see all this great live music, through, a single ticket or a season pass. But if we're all things Texan, like we say we are, let's put our money where our mouth is and support, the arts through our stages. So that's where that philosophy came from. And prior to that, we have 3 primary stages at the fair. We used to have 4. So we have the Chevrolet main stage, which is the large stage that you see most of the national headliners on.
Right.
Then we have the Bud Light stage, which is outside Gate A in Cotton Bowl Stadium. And that's kind of like our high-tier local bands and groups. And that originally, prior to the trajectory that we have now, was mostly kind of that traveling fair live music situation. So we would have somebody that would play for 24 days straight.
Yep. I've done that.
And we've done that, and we had a great band, the Kildares.
Yeah.
They played the Bud Light stage on the Gate G side of
they did that for a
Bowl,
long time.
and they did that almost at least 20 years, I think.
Yeah, because I remember when I was younger going to the fair, seeing them.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, and that was a way to support local music. But there's 24 days, and that's 24 opportunities, and there's there were 4 stages, now there's 3. We've transitioned one into an entertainment stage, our fringe stage. And that just opens up a lot of opportunity for other people to showcase, their talent, and for us to promote them.
Yeah.
And for us to lean again on that, celebrating all things Texan, especially through the arts. So that's how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and I can, let me say thank you, because it's given a lot of local bands, my band, one of my bands included, just a couple of my bands included, just a lot of opportunities that to reach an audience we otherwise wouldn't be able to, and that's an amazing thing.
Well, and I think on the adverse side of that, or the opposite side of that, you have an audience that reaches you.
Right.
And when you look at the diversification of what we have on the stages, from traditional country to Americana to
like Latin
New
cumbia,
Orleans,
yeah, New Orleans,
live
yeah.
jazz, cumbia, all of that. It allows us to kind of, everybody gets a share of that exposure. So we're excited to see where it's gone.
Absolutely, and I liked what you talk about, just the amount of different acts and the diversity. It encourages people to come back kind of again and again.
That's the hope, and we have learned more and more. If we look on the business side of these reasons, that there is not a better proposition in this market, and I'm in the state. If you go up to Oklahoma, where we're competitive with the casinos for live music and entertainment, that to think that you can pay $50 for a season pass and see everything on our main stage, and then another 70 acts throughout the park, over a 24-day period, we're doing something special right now.
It's quite a deal.
Yeah.
So talk about, I read the article in the Observer about some of the music that has been at the fair. Talk about just the history of music at the fair, and the great history, that's the enormous acts that have come through.
It's always been a part of our history. So the fair started in 1886. We are one of the oldest organizations within the city. We're together with like the YMCA, the Dallas Fire Department, the Dallas Morning News. So we've been around for a really, really, really long time. And as early as 1886, when they opened the doors, there was some amount of live music. Think kind of a grandstand band style. Right. John Philip Sousa's played at the fair.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I mean, Sousa, Houdini. I mean, it's, all the famous names in performance have played. That it's great that, Elvis played at the fair, but there were so many others. Frank Sinatra, Victor Borge. That's the show. I'm an old soul, so Victor Borge used to pack the Cotton Bowl.
Wow.
To do his shtick, and I would just love to be a fly on the wall to see something like that. Ethel Merman.
Wow.
At that period of time, the Dallas, what is now known as Broadway Dallas, was Dallas Summer Musicals. That was an entity of the State Fair.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So the bandshell, back after the Texas Centennial in 1936, and the bandshell was created then, Dallas Opera, it was called the Dallas Starlight Operetta, and that all occurred in the bandshell from 1930s to about the 1950s, I think.
Yeah.
Take a pause for the World War II. But lots of opera, lots of music, kind of across all genres. Have a Roy Acuff.
Wow, yeah.
Selena's played at the fair. Destiny's Child. The list goes on and on and on. ZZ
Where
Top.
would they play? I gather from the article, the Elvis one in particular, was it inside the Cotton Bowl?
It was.
Okay.
It was. So that was a primary location for live music during the run of the fair.
Yeah.
And kind of a unique twist, the State Fair, prior to the current management operations of Fair Park, and I'm talking way back, or let me say like let's say 1980s prior.
Sure.
Was the fair park was operated by the state fair as well, so it managed the park
Gotcha.
for the city of Dallas. So again, during the fair time, a lot of that would have been on, in the Cotton Bowl. There used to be a stage in front of Big Tex.
Okay.
So like where the Chevy Experience is, and there's a concession stand there. But then, in the off season, they would be doing live music in the band shell, the Fair Park Coliseum, the big green building where we have our rodeos now, and then the music hall. So where Broadway Dallas is. And then, of course, there's Texas Jam and all of that occurred in the Cotton Bowl as well.
And so I want to ask about the band shell. Is there any chance that you could that the fair might bring live music back to, because it's a beautiful band shell, and I would love to see live music back in that band shell.
I am chomping at the bit to have live music in that area. The environment is just, I can forecast it being, incredible for that.
Absolutely.
As part of the Brimer bill funding that passed a couple of years ago through the city of Dallas, the band shell will actually get a full renovation.
Oh, wow. New seating and everything?
Pardon me?
New seating and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll have to fall within the landmark requirements
Gotcha,
for that facility, but yes. And you can look online for some kind of pre-renovation concepts for that. So we're holding off for now for that to occur. We don't have any sort of timeline on when that occurs and stuff like that, but that is definitely on my radar. I think it could be as cool as the Hollywood Bowl, experientially for live music. So it's definitely on our radar.
Good to hear.
And there's a lot of interest outside the fair to utilize that facility. Fair Park's a great location for live music outside of the fair. We see the promise for that. If you look at the facilities within that, somebody needs to swoop in and do a large festival there, because the assets are ready for something significant. So
a long time ago, Eric Clapton did his very first Crossroads Guitar Festival in the Cotton Bowl and on the fairgrounds, and I was there for that, and it was a great experience. It was just to be there on the fairgrounds for that.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. So that you might know that the Cotton Bowl is actually going through an extensive expansion right now. It will expand the Gate A side of the concourse, and well, that's great for football and other sporting events. The opportunity for large, massive scale, stadium style concerts in Dallas is growing and growing. We have heard from many large production companies that are looking at big tours, that the Cotton Bowl is an ideal location for live music. And the reason is it is open air. It's close in. And it just provides a different experience than what you see commonly now for large events. So,
well, like you were saying, sound wise, the open air versus AT&T's, I'm sure, is such a greater advantage.
Yeah, and each one of those facilities has their their pros to them. But we did hear from a tour manager recently who is based out of the United Kingdom, and he happened to come to the Texas OU game. He said, the sound of this sounds like Wembley.
Yeah.
It sounds like Wembley in here. So he was, kind of translating that to live music and, what that could sound like. So hopefully, we've already seen, through the public-private partnership that the city has with OVG and their opportunity to bring in things like Rolling Stones and Coldplay and, other groups that, there's interest there. So it'll be cool to see what happens once the renovations are complete.
That's cool. So I want to go back and talk a little more about the acts that you bring through. And in my experience, playing a fair, the audience, because the audiences are ever changing, right? It's a new audience every 2 minutes, right? So a band that can come in and grab an audience's attention at a fair and hold their attention for an entire 45-minute set takes some real skill. So and for any, young bands that maybe hoping to get into the fair, what are you kind of looking for from a band in the bands that you typically book?
I think the big thing for bands to recognize, especially when they come play at the fair, is first, it's an all-day event. I know that has, been kind of a unique situation for a lot of the bands that we've brought in through State Fair Records.
It's a stamina. Yeah.
It is. It really is. I mean, you're doing 4 sets a day, so that, 4 45-minute shows. And it's a little bit different than, like a gig at a bar
right.
or, at, let's say somewhere like the Kessler or something like that. There is that constant movement. But, if you have that capability to capture the audience, once they're captured, the environment in that area focuses on you. And you kind of create this small festival,
right.
That you're driving in that moment. A great example of that is like our Unfaded Brass Band that plays on the last Sunday of the fair. And this is like a traditional New Orleans brass band that the crew that works with that, or that is Unfaded, they actually moved to North Texas based off of Katrina. And they have just a really good story, but they came in and we had them, I think, our very first or second year that we were working with State Fair Records. And it's loud and it's fun, and they have like a 4-year-old on a trombone. And the energy of the plaza just cones into that area. And by the last show, which is, I think, 7:30 on that stage, they're doing a second line throughout the plaza, and you've got a couple thousand people that are roaming, and it's really like an experience unlike any other that you find in maybe a more traditional gig. So I think I recommend to anybody that wants to participate at the fair, or is coming to participate at the fair, is be authentic to what you're what you're trying to do, and allow our audience to respond to it.
That's great.
And there's so many examples of that. That's one of my favorites, though.
I love that. So let's talk now. Tell me about the strangest gig you've ever booked or seen, either at the fair or in a previous experience.
So I don't know that I can think of I'm in the fair industry, so, grain of salt with that comment, but I don't know that I can think of anything that I would say, man, that was, really strange or unique.
Yeah.
Just because we're pretty selective on, what we bring to the fair. I think everybody's been a really great partner. If I was an outsider looking in, it's like, man, he books strongmen and people that can shoot bow and arrows with their toes.
Yeah.
And, we've got a guy coming this year that'll balance a balloon with a candelabra on top of it and a knife in his mouth. I mean, it's just, so I really can't think of anything off the top of my head that stands out in our fair life. But when you talk about strangest gigs in my personal career life, so I've mentioned that obviously I've been with the State Fair for a long time. I was in sports for a long time. But when I was in college, I worked for a funeral home.
Oh, wow.
So that is my strangest gig.
Yeah.
And when I say that it is a strange gig, I don't mean that it was like weird. It's just the most unique that I've had. And I will always say that was the best public relations job that I've ever had. So I guess that's my answer to you.
I love it.
So my career path, when everybody tells you go to school and you graduate, your degree might not be what you utilize throughout your year. I'm a prime example
I love it.
of that trajectory.
So what did you do for them?
Quite a bit. I actually really enjoyed it. A lot of, sitting for visitations, helping with, services, driving, things like that. But, it was like a mom and pop kind of organization. Like I mentioned, I went to Texas Tech, so I was out in Lubbock. And, I I'm a very personable person.
Yeah.
And, like to meet people and speak with them, and so I enjoyed that aspect of it. And as a hungry college student, the offer for the post-meal potluck was always enjoyable.
I bet.
So yeah, that's
great.
A unique part of my life.
So I'll tell you my strangest fair gig, and this didn't happen at the State Fair of Texas. This happened at a fair in Florida, and it was one of the first gigs that I did with Vocal Trash, and it was like dollar night at the fair, and we were playing the stage right by the main entrance.
Do you know which fair this was?
I believe it was called the Strawberry Festival.
Okay.
It was either that or Miami-Dade County Fair, and I don't remember which. It was Miami-Dade is what it was. So we were outside of Miami, but it was dollar night, and we were playing a show, and while we were playing a show, the crowds had started to get a little unruly trying to get in, and they started a riot. People were climbing over the fences and
Vocal Trash. Vocal Trash.
Not for us. So we wrapped up our show pretty quickly and headed for the green room after that, because they were tearing the gates down and trying to storm in. It was pretty scary. So that was fun. That was probably my strangest.
That's one of those when promotion opportunities go awry.
Yeah.
It's like disco night at the Cubs game or something.
Right.
Like that.
So tell me about your dream gig. Maybe is there a dream act that you'd love to book at the fair?
I don't know that I have a singular dream act that I can think of. I think that would be maybe putting my preference over, what's best for the fair. I would really like us to move towards some sort of paid attraction when it comes to live music.
Yeah.
And not to get rid of anything that we're currently doing, but I would love to see us utilize the asset that's the Cotton Bowl for a large-scale live music event.
That'd be great.
And the concept there would be focused on Texas music, be whatever genre that is, but like a culmination of the state fair, that final weekend kind of situation. Just a celebration of Texas that is focused on live music.
That'd be fun.
Kind of like the final hurrah for the run of the fair. So that I think is my ideal gig.
Maybe Willie Nelson.
I mean, why not Beyonce?
Why not Beyonce?
It'd be great to have Willie out there.
Yeah.
Willie, please come to the fair.
Yeah, please.
But there's so much talent.
Yeah.
And we've actually kind of dreamed on this with some partners that we have, and it could be something really special just for everybody. Like there is not an environment in the festival industry and the fair industry and the live music industry like the State Fair of Texas.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for college football. There is a reason Texas and Oklahoma stay with the State Fair of Texas for that historic game.
Yeah.
The energy is so different than anything you can find anywhere else.
Sure.
But I imagine it's like that Saturday night of this idea, and the Cotton Bowl's illuminated, and the talent is flying via helicopter from Love Field over the fair and landing. There's a park adjacent to Fair Park, and coming in and just seeing the masses and the Midway lights and downtown, and I think large talent is looking for special experience, and I know we're the place that can provide that.
Awesome.
So that's what I would like to see. But it's part of the idea that we started with, that regardless of who you are, if you're proud of the music that you're creating, you're from Texas, and we're going to be biased. You gotta be from Texas.
Sure.
That's what we do. We have space for you to be promoted at the fair.
That's
so
great.
You can be a solo artist, or you can be somebody like Beyonce.
Somebody like Beyonce at the Bud Light
Beyonce,
stage. Yeah, I love it. Jason, thank you so much. This has been so fun getting to chat with you and learn more about the fair, and I really appreciate it. So tell me, maybe talk about some of the acts that are playing this year. What can people look forward to for the fair this year?
Sure. We have a wide array of talent coming out. We start on Friday, September 27th. Mm-hmm. We're excited for that. I will tell you, when we started this move to promoting live music, as I've mentioned, and I don't know that I've provided any history on this, there's a guy here in town, Evan Tate, runs Tate Farms, that, I've been connected to him through the fair, and I said, hey, man, we're looking for, to adjust our live music here at the fair. Who do we need to talk to get engaged with that? And he said, you need to talk to Trey Johnson and the team over at State Fair Records. We met over at Neighborhood, and Trey was there, Courtney was there, Scott was there, Evan was there, and Josh was there, Joshua Ray Walker. Yeah. And that's where it started. And Josh has always been a part of what we've been doing at the fair. And you know what? He's such a good guy. Yeah. I'm just so proud of him. That is a concert I'm looking forward to the most this year. He's going to open up at 5:30. I think it's the second Saturday of the fair. On
the main stage, right?
Yeah, on the main stage. I'm so excited to see him out there amongst everybody else that will be at the fair. I'd sit here and try to list all of them.
It's a lot.
But I think there's literally, let's see, 24, 40, it's almost 85 acts this year.
Wow.
So whenever you can come on Friday, you can come on a Tuesday, you can come on a Thursday. Yeah. There's going to be awesome live music at the State Fair.
That's great. Jason, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
For sure, man. Anytime.
Have a good one. All right, there he goes. Thanks so much to Jason Hayes for coming on and talking with me. Thanks again to Maureen Womack for setting it up. Y'all, please be sure, head out to the State Fair of Texas. It starts Friday, September 27th, goes through October 20th. As Jason said, there's 80 plus acts of amazing music, many of whom are my good friends of mine. They're awesome. Go see them. And it's worth the price of admission for sure. Again, my name is Chris J. Norwood. Come see Chris J. Norwood in the Knockdown Dragout, December 6th at the Longhorn Ballroom, opening for Mark Broussard. And I want to thank you personally for listening to the Strangest Gig podcast. We can't do this without you. I mean, honestly, I'd probably be having these conversations anyway, but I appreciate you listening. If you're a fan of the show, please, do all the things. Like, subscribe, whatever you need to do, whatever podcasting platform you listen to. Give us a follow. Tell your friends. Spread the good word. And if you are a musician with your own strange gig story, hit me up. Let's get you on. And until then, just remember, a gig's a gig, right?